So I thought I should mention that to you. But there are two things that you can do. One is support the rights of the individual wherever you find these rights abridged. The American Civil Liberties Union is a very good way to do that. And also to form free associations of individuals, collective groups based on common interests, because these groups will undercut the power of the state and of the capitalists. There is much power in individuals who join together for the common good based on their own interests, freely joining, freely leaving if they so choose. It isn't that anarchists are against organization, but they want it to be small organization, not large organization that tramples on people. Now, were I in my own house, I would make you some of my very famous coffee, which is black as the flag of anarchism, strong as revolution, and sweet as love. And you know, calling me Red Emma is a mistake also, because I marched under the red and black banner of communist anarchists. But in any case, I would make you some of my coffee. Since we're not in my living room, I will answer your questions. So, do you have any questions for me tonight? Yes, sir.
You mentioned that you had differences with Margaret Sanger. Would you care to mention what those differences were?
Yes, my differences with Margaret Sanger were over the fact that she started to support the eugenics movement, meaning that she thought some people were better reproducers than others. She thought that the Anglo-Americans and the rich would produce better children than immigrants and those who were not Anglo-Americans. So I disagreed with her over that. Yes?
Tell us about your experience with the anarchists in Spain.
My experience with the anarchists in Spain, I am just beginning now to work with them. I am fearful that the same thing will happen as happened with the Soviet anarchists. You know, the world does not want anarchist collectives to exist. The state tries to crush that. I'm working with the Spanish anarchists through Toronto, where I live since I'm not allowed back in the United States. I'm afraid that the Spanish fascists might not let the Spanish anarchists succeed, but it is a great experiment. Yes, sir.
As an anarchist, you're opposed to large organizations, opposed to government and big business. If you set up the small cooperatives that you speak of, what will keep other people from setting up large organizations to oppress you the way government has and the way big business has?
How do we stop large organizations from forming?
Without having a government.
Without having a government. Well, I think that if individuals try to drop out of the large organizations, if they are educated to believe that the smaller organizations are more to their benefit, then they will do so. Even Jefferson believed that smaller was better. This has been a discussion in America since then. But I believe that our education system is very lacking. Think about it. Don't schools look like factories? Don't bells ring just like factories? Aren't children educated to think in very rigid ways so that they will become willing workers and willing cannon fodder? We must educate the young differently so that they will be more likely to see that freedom lies in small rather than large organizations. Yes?
One of the pieces of publicity about this program called Emma a feminist. From what you know of Emma, would you have called her a feminist?
Well, what I know of myself is that I am for women's rights because women are human beings, and I am for individual rights of all human beings. Now, there are other women, such as Margaret Sanger, who become single-issue women. The fighters for the women's vote were single-issue women. They channeled all their energy in that direction. They didn't look at women's larger rights, such as their sexual freedom. So Other people might call me a feminist or some other term related to women's issues, but I see women's issues as part of human issues. If men have sexual freedom, women should have sexual freedom. That's how I see it. Yes?
What has been your relationship with your siblings and your parents?
My family relationships. Well, people might be surprised to find that my family relationships have not been bad, that Helena and I have retained closeness all these years, that her daughter became a secretary for me at one point and also opened up a radical bookstore, so I believe I have had some family influence, but my parents really didn't know what to do about me. I was perhaps an embarrassment to them in the community of Rochester. But they accepted me, and certainly I maintained contact with my family, still do. One of the reasons I have spent time in Toronto is because it's so close to Rochester. And even though I'm not allowed back in the United States, there are rumors that I have gone over the border from time to time.
What are your plans for your future, Emma?
What
You're
are my
63.
plans?
Time left.
I will just keep working for the cause. You know, my autobiography does discuss some of my disappointments, some of my bitterness. I mention, for instance, that although Sasha seems to always find younger women who he can have relationships with, the world does not seem to accept an older woman having relationships with a younger man. So there are certain things that I am not completely happy about in my life, but all of the energy that has been put into lecturing and writing and politics, perhaps I would like to have seen more come out of that. But I don't see any alternative than to keep on working.
Tell me about your source of funds. You talked about working in a factory early on and then getting a better job. What other jobs did you have?
Well, I was a nurse midwife on the Lower East Side of New York. I had training in Vienna from 1895 to 96 when I studied with Sigmund Freud, among others, and that's where I got some of my ideas about sexual freedom for all. And also I opened up a scalp massage parlor in New York using European methods to stimulate the hair follicles. I had a restaurant at one point. It was not through lecturing and writing that I earned a living most of the time. In fact, other ways of earning a living funded my lecturing and my writing. And there were also private subscriptions that radicals might take up so that I would not have to work, so that I could put more time into the writing or the lecturing. For instance, when I wrote my autobiography, someone donated a house in the south of France so that I could just live there and write for 2